Thank you so much, Chairman Stauber. And thank you to our witnesses for joining us this morning to discuss the U.S. Geological Survey's critical minerals list. Thank you for joining us, gentlemen. Recognizing the foundational role many minerals play in our economy, Congress has recently tasked USGS with creating and regularly updating a list of critical minerals. These are minerals that are deemed essential to U.S. economic or national security and are vulnerable to supply chain disruption. These critical minerals will play a crucial role in our clean energy transition. For example, we use lithium, cobalt, and nickel, among many other minerals, in batteries for electric vehicles, in wind turbines, and solar panels, all renewable energy technologies that will help us end our reliance on polluting fossil fuels and stave off the worst effects of the climate crisis. Critical minerals will be especially important for the transition of our transportation sector. Transportation is currently the #1 source of carbon emissions in the United States, which makes this sector crucial to decarbonizing quickly. An important aspect of electrified transportation is demand for minerals, and the most non-replaceable critical mineral for electric vehicle batteries is lithium. Now, I'd like to use lithium as a prescient example here. Lithium is already a bottleneck in the global and domestic supply chains for electric vehicles, or EVs. Today, there is only one operational lithium mine in the entire United States. Most of our lithium is currently imported from countries like Chile and Argentina. And our demand for lithium is only expected to skyrocket in the coming decades. Studies show that if today's demand for electric vehicles is projected outward, the global demand for lithium will increase 42 times by 2040. The vast majority of this new demand will be driven by the United States. If demand for EVs continues at our current pace, the lithium requirements for the US EV market alone in 2050 would require triple the amount of lithium currently produced on the entire planet today. Corporate interests and their allies in Congress see this potential for astronomical demand and point to it as a reason for cutting our bedrock environmental protections, ignoring community input, and abusing vulnerable communities among our international trade partners. These private interests and their allies will say that we need to spark a rush to the bottom in order to compete with China, that we can't afford our 200-year-old mining law, they'll say, because China's mining regulations are weaker, that we can't afford to pay union wages to US auto workers, they'll say, because Chinese auto workers already make less. And essentially, major corporations are asking us to engage in a global race to the bottom because when they drive costs down, they profit. But they use those profits to then surge and skyrocket their own CEO pay and not drive costs down, but to drive them up. These race to the bottom arguments prey on a fear of scarcity that is emotionally appealing. But like so many arguments based in fear, this is a false choice. For one, these arguments fail to acknowledge the work the United States can do in other sectors to reduce our reliance on these minerals in the first place. A recent study by UC Davis and the Climate Community Project shows that by increasing mass transit options, bringing EV batteries in line with other nations, and creating a robust battery recycling system, we can reduce our dependence on lithium by as much as 92%. In a world where lithium is hard to come by, these reforms would have huge advantages for our energy and economic security. Race to the bottom arguments also ignore a painful legacy when it comes to mining. Namely, we must recognize that to this day, mining disproportionately harms indigenous communities in the United States and across the globe. In the US, 97% of known nickel deposits, 89% of copper, 79% of lithium, and 68% of cobalt, all critical energy transition minerals, are within 39 miles of tribal lands. And unfortunately, mining on public lands in the US is still governed by the long outdated mining law of 1872, which lacks provisions for tribal consultation, environmental safeguards, permitting requirements, or even royalties, so American citizens can see even a return on these publicly owned resources. But the clean energy transition is an opportunity to reimagine our supply chain, from mineral extraction all the way to end use. And we do not need to choose between sacrifice zones and creating jobs. Using nonpartisan data from the USGS, we can improve mineral efficiency, increase recycling, and build economic security. We can require meaningful consultation with tribes. We can work in partnership with organized labor to build family-sustaining union jobs in mineral processing and manufacturing. And lastly, we can develop trade policy that holds our global partners accountable to the same environmental and labor standards established here, so that businesses have no incentive to leave the US for cheaper labor or resources. It won't be easy, and I firmly believe that with a coordinated whole-of-supply chain approach, we can reduce demand, prevent environmental and cultural harms, and uphold Indigenous sovereignty while enforcing strong labor standards. Thank you.